Well, right out the gate in today's show, Pam, I've got to ask, how are your feet from the weekend that we just experienced together?
They're still a little sore. Still a little sore. Got a couple spots that just aren't being kind.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It was worth it.
A lot of time on the feet. If you weren't familiar, as part of the nation, we've been writing about this about a challenge that Pam and I've kind of just put ourselves in, and we're the only ones doing it. We had friends that joined us, but it's not like a formal official thing. But we did the David Goggins 4x4x48 challenge, which is 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours straight that you run or walk.
Yeah.
And so it started Thursday. We finished Saturday in the afternoon. Best part to me was I got to do it with you. And even though we weren't always, I ran as much as almost all of it. And
I walked the vast majority of it.
And so we weren't at the same pace, but we passed each other a lot. We always ended up at the same place. We recovered beside each other.
It was a lot of fun to do together.
And then we had friends that joined us. So that was fun. That was my favorite thing was doing it alongside you, and the fact that the whole world drifted away while that was going on, because it was just that. It was that big of a challenge that was all that was going on.
Absolutely. I didn't think about work for those 2 days solid. And that was wonderful. I thought about a lot of other things it was a really good, just kind of mental escape.
Mm-hmm. So do hard things in life. Put yourself in situations where you're not sure you can finish it, and see what you learn about yourself.
Yeah, that's good.
We won't do it again in this form for sure.
We'll have something else.
We'll come up with
find
something else.
Fun.
And then also late last week, a refresh of SMR.FM rolled out. So right before the challenge started, I actually converted the site over to a brand new feel and structure, as far as an easier way for people in the nation to find information is the overall goal. And so it's broken down into a lot of topical, here's what I'm here for. And you can click on it and it helps search for you automatically of here's content that fits that strategy, that struggle, that situation. So hopefully it's incredibly helpful. So we're asking the nation to go check it out. SMR.FM, just poke around, because obviously not everything translates as clean as it does on my side. I'd like to know from all the systems that are out there, are there glitches? What have I missed? So check it out and let us know. And so today, here's where we're going today for the show. There's an email that came in that's based largely from an article I wrote a couple of weeks back called "The Most Well-Read Man in the Room," which is me. That was what the point of the article was. I'm an educated guy as it comes to relationships, but why is it that it's such a struggle to make moves and actually see how those educated thoughts translate into improvements?
Yeah.
Because that's the struggle in some ways. A lot smaller after 48 miles. And so what we're going to do is kind of set the stage in the regular version of what's going on with the systems between us in our brains and our emotional and our intellectual components of us. And then the extended content today, we're going to talk about what does it actually look like when we get better at doing this in real time?
Yeah.
How do we actually do this?
Okay.
And so that's where we'll set the stage. And I want to do it in two ways to set the content.
Because you get an email come in for this,
There's
right?
an email that we'll get to, but I want to start it with a story that was shared one time at a training I was at with Schnarch, where a colleague stood up after one of the times where we've been working, we'd on a break, and he was wrestling with some stuff in real time. Because if you went to this kind of training with Schnarch, you're not just absorbing information intellectually, you're also challenged to have to deal with it yourself, of how is this playing out in my own life? Because if I'm not dealing with life better, how can I help my clients deal with life better? Because I won't be able to handle and tolerate the anxiety that's going to come in the room when I'm working with people.
Yeah.
If my own stuff keeps getting in the way. And so he was telling a story of how his daughter, who was grown at the time of this story, he divorced his wife when she was young. And so she was raised in separate families. She was the one that ended up with mom. And he was the bad guy, according to the story and the versions of events that she was informed by her mother. And so as she started getting older and started kind of living her own life again in her 20s, she sought out therapy. So she asked her dad, do you have somebody I should go see? So he actually hooked her up with somebody that was actually in the room. He didn't share any confidences or anything, but a trained therapist. And so the girl really started digging in. Mm-hmm. And so what was great is after working through her history, she started to get the fuller picture of everything that was
Mm-hmm.
going on, because she kind of got an objective viewpoint of both sides of her parents, of seeing who both these people were.
Seeing that dad wasn't such a bad guy.
Right. I mean, he had his downfalls and he had his struggles, and this is where we're going to land in the story in just a second. But also started seeing more clearly mom's volatility, mom's manipulative nature, mom's, all the different things that. And so she actually was talking to her dad, and his phrasing was great. And I'll paraphrase, I don't remember exactly his wording, but it was like, I get it now. I see why mom was troublesome to live with, and I can even kind of understand why you would leave. I mean, I get it, because she held a lot against her father.
Sure.
She felt left and abandoned, and he quit and everything. So she started seeing another side. And so she comes to him and she says, it all makes sense to me now, but where are you now?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I can understand why it went down then,
but I'm still here.
But where are you now?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a different question. Right? That's not just an accusation and an attack. It's got some of that layered in, but that's a calling out of what's happening in real time with us, what's happening in real time with you. And here's an email that kind of does the same thing from a husband saying, I don't even know how to start this. I've been listening to the show for a few years. I've read some of the books, particularly Schnarch's books, Passionate Marriage and Brain Talk, even took pages of notes on both. And I probably spent more hours than I want to admit trying to figure out what's wrong with my marriage and what I'm supposed to do about it. And yet I still feel stuck. My wife said something to me a few weeks ago that I can't stop thinking about. She said she feels like I know everything about marriage except how to actually be in one. That landed hard because honestly, she's not wrong. I can tell you what I do when I feel rejected. I can actually see it happening. I know where it came from. I've listened to enough episodes and done enough reading that I can basically narrate my own patterns while they're occurring. And then I just keep doing them anyway. I get defensive when she comes at me. I go quiet when things get hard. I wait for it to feel safe enough to say what I actually mean. And that moment usually never comes. And I know all of this, and I've known all of this for a while, but knowing hasn't changed anything. She still doesn't feel the difference. That's the part I keep coming back to. I've done a lot of work to understand myself better, and from where she's standing, nothing looks different. I'm not sure what I'm even asking, but maybe I just need to say to someone who would understand what I'm describing. Thanks. I understand what he's describing because I've been in these shoes in our marriage of, I think I know quite a bit about relationship dynamics and myself. Yet there's still problem areas where I see myself getting in the way. And what am I doing about that? What are you hearing in this though, as you hear the email, Pam?
I think that this might be pretty darn common. I go back to the question that I ask of myself, would I want to be married to me? And I think a lot of people, if they ask themselves that question, they would identify areas that they're like, well, I wouldn't want to be married to me because of X, Y, and Z, right? Because I do these things. But even though we know these things, how many of us do something about it?
Yeah.
How many of us proactively do something to actually be uncomfortable and change it?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can look at yourself all day long and realize where your issues are, but it's really uncomfortable to take that next step and actually change those features of yourself.
Yeah, there's two things that pop to my mind here. One is the idea that understanding something isn't actually movement. It's just understanding.
It's useful. I mean, we talk about this on the show all the time about work on yourself, work on yourself. You have to take the time to intellectually get to where you see the things going on with yourself. So I think that's like the step. It's a step. But
we mistake that as that's the goal in and of itself. And in actuality, in some areas of my the mental health field, that's the point, is to help create understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the thing I hear all the time with couples is we just needed better help understanding each other. And to which I'll go, okay, what would happen then? Right? Because I can understand where you're coming from, but it's still going to be conflictual with us.
Yeah. That's part of the process. It's not the whole process.
But then there's an element too that what comes to my mind is a statement from Mel Robbins in her Let Them Theory book, that she makes the comment because she gets into a pretty detailed exploration of dealing with a struggle, and the struggle to stay where you are has to be greater than the struggle to actually want to change, to make us really want to change. Because most of the time we know it's best that I don't eat a certain kind of food that I just love, or that I don't go to a gym when I say I want to go to a gym, or I don't quit smoking when I know it's harmful to me, or I don't get enough sleep when I know I need to do this. But the struggle to actually make myself go do it isn't oftentimes bigger than the struggle to I'll just deal with
the consequences.
I'll just deal with it. It's okay. And I'll take the easy way out. And that's where it becomes really important for us to realize that the process going on in us is twofold. It's not just, if I could understand this better, I have the silver bullet that will make everything fall into place. And in actuality, what it is I'm going to understand things better, and I'm going to start to see myself better. And then the real work has to begin. And that's where too often I've been a problem. I've had this issue of, I'll just keep reading books. I'll just keep learning. I'll dive into Schnarch even more to understand it. And that will make it all better. But in reality, it just helps me give me a clearer picture of, no, here's what you actually need to be doing. Now go do it or not. That's the difference. And so there's two things that come out from this email that I want to point out.
Okay.
And then we'll get into the systems. One is his absorbing and hearing what she said. I mean, it kind of gave him confirmation. Like, he knew this was going on. I'm not feeling the difference either. Right? I feel like there's some good things, and because that's that thing, we can convince ourselves because of our mind that I'm doing what I need to be doing. I'm doing right. Procrastinating is the big one that kind of, no, I got to get this done, but I'll know I'll get to, and then you get that time actually hits, and it's like, oh, now
I never got it done. Now it's last minute.
Oh, here I go again. All these different things where the reality of the world then kicks into play, where the consequences of all the stuff I kept convincing myself I didn't need to do yet start to really come due. And so there's an element of him understanding this is really big and important. And that's what we'll unpack some at the beginning of this. And then we'll look at how we do this for wherever we are in the extended, even in more detail. But the other side of this equation is her statement. It's the same as the daughter's statement, right? It's the same concepts of, okay, wait, you know all of this stuff.
The daughter from the previous story? Okay.
You know all of this stuff, but why is it not showing up? Because I want to land there too, because there's some sophistication in how this can be positioned. And just going from an email, I don't have enough to go on to go one side or another, but I want to talk about both sides.
Okay.
Well, I'm trying to read your mind.
Sophistication in how this is positioned from the wife?
Yes, of the role, of the stance she's taking with the way she's presenting herself in this.
Okay.
There's a dynamic at play that's worth examining here, that is trying to understand, because she can come at him and say, you know all of this, but yet nothing's changing. Which can be factual because he's confirming it is. But how is she positioning herself with this move?
Like, I'll move once you finally start moving?
Yeah, it's that idea of, why aren't you leading us into a better marriage, when she's a part of the marriage too? She's a part of life too. Where is she in leading towards a better marriage too?
I mean, maybe she's been working on making some changes as well, and she's just tired of being told what to do when she doesn't see him making any changes on his end.
Absolutely. And that's where, and that's where I don't want to make an accusation one way or another, but this is, again, more about self-awareness of, okay, so if I'm looking at my spouse, because this is what we are all too common to do, I put so much emphasis and importance on what my spouse is or isn't doing as it pertains to how I view the marriage, that I'm not aware of me.
Okay.
And so I can take a stance of, and this is the way I phrase this with clients, is I can have a really accurate map of my spouse and be totally blind of myself.
That's 100%.
And so I will have these list of things that you're not doing while totally not even realizing I'm not doing a bunch of things too.
I'm not doing it, but it is frustrating when you keep reading and doing whatever. But then, okay, why should I change if you're just going to keep telling me what should be changed and you're not doing and you're not changing?
Right. And that's where the accuracy can be true of like, wait, you're talking about these things, but I don't see it modeled yet.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also an element of there's a reason why you don't see it modeled yet is because you're likely not doing it either.
Yeah. Well, why should I change if you're not changing? You're just expecting me to change.
And this is where the dynamic gets bogged down. I hear what
you're saying. I'm like that devil's advocate kind of thing of when we don't know really what the other side is.
Right. But I want to at least point it out that her phraseology and framing of herself can have accuracy to it and be a part of the story.
Yes.
But there's also a part of the story that her stance can be protecting herself from something that she's culpable for, the dynamic in her marriage being a problem that she's not recognizing she's the problem and helping with it. And so it's just realizing, and this goes with the idea of when you look at, when I think of marriage, we're talking about a system that's always, always, always co-created. What people choose to do and how it gets off the rails is people's choices. But if I tolerate bad behavior, quote unquote, or immature acting or laziness or frivolousness in spending on debt and all, if I'm tolerating it and tolerating it, I'm culpable for a dynamic. That's what I want to point out. That's what most people won't point out.
Okay.
Because that can feel like, well, of course I'm supposed to not be at that. And I'm like, yes, you're right. But what are you actually doing to confront that? That's the struggle. And the reason it's a trouble to do something versus the knowledge of it is because there's a big gap between our knowing processes in our body and our brain and our feeling processes in our body and brain. And I'm going to use those terminologies just for simplicity's sake, right? Because it's actually two different sides of the brain is one way you can think about it, but I'm just going to use it as knowledge and feeling because that's the more common vernacular, if you will, because there's two systems, but they have different jobs, right? Everybody, I'm assuming, understands this, that the knowing part is the left brain, it's the library, it's cataloging the facts, the data, the intellectual components. It organizes things, it explains things, it puts pieces together that help make sense of all the stuff. And then the right brain, it just doesn't work in words. It works in feelings and experiences and sensations and images and pattern recognition. That's the feeling side of things. That's where our system for survival and the way we are created is aware of our surroundings that's not in intellectual data. It's aware of it in a feeling, in a vibe, because it picks up patterns.
Okay.
Right. And so it reads the room and it registers things as threats. You can walk into a room and notice some people that you intellectually, consciously, you won't even recognize it, but you'll feel off at some point. You're like, what just changed? And because something became similar to a pattern of something that then registered in your brain as filing that away of, here we go.
Put your guard up or something like that.
And it's the same kind of thing. Have you ever been in a situation where it's a crowded room and you feel like someone's just staring at you? And then you start scanning the room and sure enough, there's someone kind of just paying attention to you. And you're like, okay, how did I even know that?
Weird.
Yeah.
I can't say that I've had that before.
Have you ever stood in a line in a grocery store and you've had somebody behind you that's really agitated, but they're not saying anything, but you can kind of feel it. They haven't touched you. They haven't come close in your personal space, but you can just feel their energy.
Have you?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the same kind of thing. Same kind of thing when someone's really, really excited and you start to you feed off of it. You're not seeing it. You just feel it.
Mm-hmm.
They just are carrying themselves lighter. A kid comes home after a really, really good day and you can just feel it when they come in the room. Mm-hmm. You haven't seen them yet. That's our feeling, brain, because that's coming from the parts of us that don't have the data to understand and make sense of it. It just experiences it.
Okay.
And we often try to think of these as one side is better than another, when in reality, they are designed to play off of each other and help each other. But too often what happens is the feeling side of us will burn the house down with emotions and feelings before the intellectual side even realizes why the fire was started in the first place. Because it's just something set you off. It's a look, it's a view, it's a phrase, it's a stance, it's a positioning.
So I can read all day long and get smart about marriage or whatever it is I want to get smart about, but the feeling side often outrules.
Yes. It will
logic,
overrule it in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start to feel like nothing's ever changed. Because if we start to look at the dynamic as it pertains to how we view each other, one of the visuals I love using is thinking of ourselves in our own growth processes as icebergs. That a majority of what exists in an iceberg is actually under the surface of the water.
Yeah, I can't see it unless you're down there.
Right. And so when you're really starting to change some things in your life, the people around you aren't going to see that for a while, even though you may start feeling it differently. You may be proud of yourself because your wife walks in. I'm talking to the guy in the email. Your wife walks in and she has a look on her face that you immediately register as she's upset about something. And then that makes you into a defensive stance. And then there you guys are off again on whatever the races are. But yet what you're recognizing about yourself is I can come back to this sooner, or I can disconnect from this and realize it's not about me maybe. And I can have a different thought process that I start to confront myself with, and I settle myself down. She doesn't know any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But you're like, I am changing. I am doing good things, right? And so it's because it hasn't really come out to demonstrative behaviors yet. And that's because it hasn't gotten above the surface of the water.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing that happens when you're married to somebody that repeatedly says, yeah, I'm going to hit the gym 2 times this week. And come Sunday or Saturday at the end of the week, did they go? No. They
could have
had
trusting him.
They had all kinds of intents and everything, and maybe legitimate reasons why they didn't go. But it's just this concept of we recognize those patterns.
Yeah.
And so when they say it, eventually you start immediately go, whatever.
Yeah.
You just start blowing them off.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Because they're not carrying themselves in a manner that really confronts themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's what he's describing, is because our insights and our understandings don't just automatically become behaviors. Because to become behaviors, I have to actually face myself, which is the hardest part.
Yeah.
I have to actually lean into a dynamic about myself and ask better questions of myself, confront myself differently, make myself lean into something, have courage to find and try it out and see how it goes, to speak up about something, to get out of something in the moment. And that's a harder thing to do because our emotions are justifying our stance. I should feel bad about this. This keeps happening over and over, because we can intellectualize those too and make sense of them and make it to where they carry a good court case of, yeah, I'm in the right here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, yeah, you might be, but are you helping the dynamic that you're frustrated about with the stance you're taking? That's the bigger question. And so how do you do this practically is you start realizing that there's 2 systems in me going on. Which one is ruling the moment? And how do I get better recognition of myself in those so I can then disrupt it? That's how it starts. And then we're going to go deeper in just a second into what do you tangibly do. But it starts by I have to disrupt a system. Because if I'm going to be in an interaction with you, with 33 years of experience with you now, and me becoming who I'm becoming, I'm still going to have these moments of brain regression, overriding feelings of fear, insecurity, and defensiveness, feelings, and that can make me go quiet. That's my normal. That would be my normal defensive mechanism. Mm-hmm. So I'll just go quiet. I'll just get out of it. You're nodding your head really fast because you're confirming that's true. But it's one of those that, okay, so when I can start to see that's what I'm doing, My job then in that exact moment is, as soon as I possibly can, get better at, okay, what do I need to do to just settle myself down in that moment? Because the feeling's real. I don't want to, we're not talking about the data isn't real or the feelings aren't real. We're talking about dealing with them better, to settle myself down, to then deal with the situation better.
Yeah.
Because all too often what we do as people is we become the problem more so than the problem in those moments.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that.
Which then you ask yourself, looking back at it, well, duh, no wonder it becomes such an issue on why we don't feel like we're ever getting anywhere. Because I keep stepping in and making me the problem.
Yeah, I'm focused on the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm. And so if I really want to do something different, I have to learn this. It's a body skill before it becomes a relational skill. And then what do we do with that is where we're heading now in the extended content, which is smr.fm/academy is how you can join us.